Hi, my name is Jonathan Riall and I'm the head coach of the British Para-Triathlon team, a role that I've held since 2009. A little bit of background on how I got into coaching. I've been coaching since I was about 15 years old, when I was a young athlete, but right from the off, my passion to help other people around me was just as strong. And I guess initially I didn't see that as coaching. It was just sort of part of really what kept me entertained as an athlete. I started coaching a young athletics group, a junior athletics group in the same club that I was a member of. I moved on to take coaching roles with my high school swimming team. When I moved to university, I stayed on and coached my high school swimming team for the 2 years that I was there. I founded a triathlon club whilst I was at university and coached that setting. And also held sort of a committee coaching club role with Tyne Triathlon Club. When I first moved to Loughborough, I set up a triathlon club when I moved here, which was both an adults and a junior club, and I held the head coach role at a club level for over sort of 200 athletes for nearly a decade. And within that time, I was also fortunate enough to be able to be the head coach of the East Midlands Regional Academy, which was a junior pathway talent academy for able-bodied athletes. My role into para started in sort of 2009, as I said. And from that point onwards, my role has focused more and more on the sort of professional para elements of the world-class programme and being the team leader for our first Paralympic Games in Rio. So I just wanted to highlight a few of my kind of best memories really of coaching within my sport. And the highlights along the journey. So I think first of all, the biggest highlight really is having the opportunity to challenge the perceptions of other people. And by other people, I mean the general public, but also athletes themselves. So as a new sport, it was such an open kind of adventure that we went into that you didn't really know what was possible. And often athletes would set their own sort of standards at times quite low. And similarly, being a young emerging para sport, it was always quite easy for sort of the general public to perceive what might have been possible. And right from the off, all I've tried to do, and with the support of our team along the way, is just genuinely set really aspirational standards. So not only do athletes feel confident that they can achieve something they never thought they'd be able to, but also that we challenge the perceptions of what disabled athletes are capable of. And it's amazing to have seen that kind of road being laid and see athletes just absolutely flourish and set standards where we now have athletes who, across the board in all categories, can stand on a start line or stand in a training session alongside their Olympic counterparts and hold their own. That's been a fantastic thread really that's run throughout the whole of my journey. I guess secondly, in my role, like the opportunity to think both really broadly and then incredibly detailed at times. I love that variety, and I love to be able to go between the two. And being a head coach in a relatively new Paralympic sport, there's been the need at times to think a long way down the future, 4, 5, 6 years down the line, and to think really broadly, to think really aspirationally, but really strategically about the direction we want to take. Get people on board with that and influence people to give us the best opportunity to do well. But then similarly, as you approach a games, the planning on a daily basis is so detailed. The plans that sit behind athletes, performance plans, and what coaches and practitioners need to do to support those plans are incredibly detailed. And it's a really nice opportunity in my role to get to work between the two. And I think, again, it's a really good skill for a coach to be able to sort of work between really strategic long-term thinking and detailed kind of short-term thinking. I mean, taking a team to Rio is always going to be a highlight. What started out as basically a non-existent sport in 2007, 2008, to be team leader and head coach for our first games in Rio was an absolute privilege. We took the biggest team from any nation, and I think that the culmination of the hard work from so many people to be able to lead that team is an incredible highlight. And the medals that we won in Rio just added it was icing on the cake, really, to see people go out there and perform and achieve things that up until a few years before wouldn't have even been possible because the opportunity wasn't there. I think the next one, and it's something really close to my heart, is having had the opportunity as team leader and head coach, and at times the platform such as this, to talk really openly and widely about athlete welfare and the responsibility that we have as sports to be incredibly careful and responsible by how we go about supporting our people, our athletes. They're people before they are athletes. And what started out as a little thought in my mind, the more people I spoke to, the more people it seemed that were of the same thought. And it's been amazing to see what I genuinely see as a transformation in how the world-class performance system sees itself, sees its role, and also how we start to see our roles as something more than about collecting medals. For me, medals are culmination of a journey. And we have such an influential part to play over that journey and how positive it is, and how we either choose to or not take into account that there's people behind every medal. And I love everything about being able to get incredibly deep and personal and understand the athletes that we have on our team and do everything we can to make sure that their journey is specific and positive to them. And then I guess lastly, sharing opportunities like this to talk to coaches, to share thoughts and ideas. And it's such an amazing opportunity that I have in my role to be able to do that really regularly with other head coaches, with coaches from different sports. And it's an opportunity that I will always take. So it's definitely one of my highlights. I guess lastly, just what considerations do I have around working with para-athletes? And I think actually the difference between coaching athletes in a non-disabled pathway versus a para pathway, I've actually found incredibly small. The technical differences, obviously, with kit and equipment is there, but that's no different to if you were coaching a discipline in athletics versus another discipline, or if you were coaching an athlete who came from a specific background and not that background. That the specific technicalities, it's about individual athletes. That's not specific in my mind across para and able-bodied. So the considerations that have really stood out for me in my journey are that the journey that para athletes have to be on a world-class program tend to be quite varied and tend to be a little bit wider than I've seen on our Olympic program. Athletes can at times be a little bit older and potentially come to a world-class program with a little bit more life experience, for want of a better word. And for me, that just starts to define who you're working with. So you're not always working with somebody who sees themselves just as an athlete. They might be a parent, they might have had a job beforehand. How they come to acquire their disability can sometimes add a layer of how they kind of view themselves and therefore where they derive their value. So I think for me, coming back to that people first, within a para world, I just never presume anything and always spend time getting to know the person and their life and their background up until the point where they're there and you're coaching them. I would just say be curious and don't presume anything. I think the easy thing is to presume that someone can or can't do something or will or won't want to. And I think for me, one of the top priorities of any coach is just be curious and get to know the person you're coaching and figure it out as a team and as a pair. Again, just from a disability specific point of view, just don't presume that somebody needs help or is going to need you to do something for them. The skill in that coaching relationship is to explore how much ability they have and capacity they have to do things themselves. And the last one within sort of para coaching, something I've seen so regularly is I think issues are quite a lot of the time they're magnified, they're not exclusive to para. So things like travel and accessibility, food. A lot of the time they will be magnified, and in a para world you'll see them quicker. You'll see if accessibility isn't great. You'll see if the support that we're given sometimes could be better. But interestingly, I've actually never really seen something which has been highlighted in para that wouldn't just help you be a better coach, that wouldn't help you to coach somebody who isn't in a para pathway, might be in an Olympic pathway. That wouldn't help them to also be able to go and deliver better performances. So I think sometimes it's a wonderful world to just highlight things a little bit quicker and yeah, give you a little bit of time to go and try and do it better across the board. And then finally, just recommendations from one coach to another, really, and recommendations in coaching. My views around coaching is it's about people, it's about relationships. I think anybody can learn a decent degree of technical understanding of a sport, but passing that on to a person is the key. It's the task that we're here to do. So relationships for me are key to everything, and invest in those relationships way more than you ever think you'll need to. And I can promise you it will always come back and pay dividends at some point. And more often than not, when you see coaching break down, it's because relationships have broken down. It's not because you've not taught the perfect swim stroke or you've not given the right session. It's always something deeper than that. So therefore, kind of next is just build trust proactively and build it often, and don't stop building it. And I would spend as much time putting energy and effort into having good trusting relationships, both with your fellow coaches and your athletes, as much as you do trying to learn about physiology or the demands of the sport. Of course, they're critical, and you've got to be a competent coach, but you've got to have trust with the people you're coaching. And then I would say, if there was one thing that you should try and be an expert in, is asking questions and listening. And that sounds really soft. It's so easy as a coach to start a sentence with "I think," or "when I did," and all you do is dismiss the thoughts of the person you've got in front of you. And that power of that journey is going to be you figuring out how the person in front of you gets to be the best version of themselves. So learning how to ask absolutely superb questions that get people to think, that get people to stop, that influence people's behaviors and decisions. And critically and importantly, they understand that it's them who've come up with the answers. It's not you telling them. But also, you've got to listen, and listen on as many levels as you can. It's so easy to just kind of ask a question and you already have an answer in your head, but listening to what somebody else says, what they think, what they feel, where their value is placed. And for me, a good coach can do both of those incredibly well. So practice, ask for feedback all the time. And yeah, they would be my key recommendations. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And it's been a really lovely opportunity to share some of my journey with you. And I hope to see and speak to some of you in the future. Thanks. Bye-bye.